Good morning. Welcome to Science with Mr. Gifford. Today, things are going to get a little hot. Well, I was having a little trouble getting the coal forge going, so I switched over to my gas forge, which just uses propane. So I've got this metal rod inserted into the forge. This forge is made out of fire bricks. So those fire bricks act as insulators, really keep the heat in. So I can see the end of the metal is already getting hot. It's already getting to the point where it's glowing orange. It's one of the things I like about using the gas forge is that it's a lot faster, a lot more reliable. You can see inside the forge right now, but you can see the end of the metal is getting very hot. Almost hot enough for me to do something with it. Here we go. And back in the heat it goes. Down in the forge, see how hot that is. So now I have a shorter piece to work with. This is going to become the blade of my knife. I think this is going to be an oyster knife is what I'm trying to make. So what I'm going to need to do is flatten it out because the metal is still fairly thick. I need to flatten it out and draw it out so it's longer to make my blade. So now that it's a smaller piece, I'm going to use these tongs when I'm bringing it in and out of the forge, because this metal is going to be somewhere close to 800 to 1,000 degrees, so I really don't want to be touching it. Well, welcome back, and I've been at it for a little while now, and I'm starting to get something vaguely knife-shaped. So an oyster knife has a curved blade. It sort of fattens out in the middle, and it'll be skinny at the top, so you can get inside the oyster shell, and then with a wide part of the blade, you can just sort of twist it and pop it open. So that's what I'm trying to make here. Overall, the blade is going to be about 2.5 inches long, and then it's going to have about a 3-inch handle. So this will be about 5 inches, between 5 and 6 inches overall when it's done. But it's a long way from being done. So I'm going to keep at it, and I'll give you an update soon. Back in the fire. All right. I've got the blade pretty much the shape I want it to. Ooh, almost dropped it. Pretty much the shape I want it to be now. See how it flattens out? And I don't know if you can see on the edges, but it's higher in the middle, and then it tapers down the sides. Maybe if you look at it like that, you can see it a little better. You can see how it's gotten thinner, and it tapers out to the sides. So I'm pretty happy with the blade at this point. Now what I want to do, I just want to flatten out the handle part so it's a little wider, so I have a little more to grip on. Last thing you want to do is slip when you're holding a sharp oyster knife in your hands. I don't know if you can see in there, but the blade is getting nice and orange hot. That's what I'm looking for. I'm actually looking for it to turn almost yellow hot. Then I really know it's ready. So it's just about ready to come out, and then I'll plunge it in the oil. Well, that wasn't very exciting. But it is going to cool the metal down a little slower than if I put it in water. And that's what I'm looking for. Okay, well, I finished outside with the forging of the blade. So we've got the basic shape we're looking for. Now I've come downstairs into my workshop, and I'm going to use the grinder behind me and the drill press. What I'm going to have to do is grind all the black carbon off of the blade, and I actually started on the other side. You can see it's already starting to get nice and shiny. So it's making a little bit of progress. So I'm going to go back to the grinder, we'll grind away, and I'll give you an update as soon as I have one. Well, there we go. I drilled 2 holes, so I'm going to put brass rods through those holes, and that's actually what's going to hold the whole handle piece together. So I'm going to let that cool down just for a minute because I got very hot as it drilled through. And I'll take it back to the grinder and finish polishing up the blade, straightening out all the little wobbles, and then we'll be just about ready to attach the handles. Alright, well, the 600 grit belt did a nice job. Blade's nice and shiny. So now what's left is finishing the handle and the final sharpening. So I was looking through my wood supply and I found this really nice piece of cherry. This looks like it was an offcut from another project, and it happens to be just the right width that I'm looking for. So I'm going to be able to make a nice set of handles out of this. It's going to be pretty thick, you can see, but I'll be able to round it off and make it very comfortable as a grip. Okay, so that's the rough cut of the handles. I cut those corners off too because that's just going to save a lot of sanding later on. So now I'm starting to get an idea of what the finished knife will look like with the handles. I'm just pinching those together, but you can see you sandwich the layers together, so the metal in the middle and then the wooden handle on either side. You can see now why I drilled that hole in the blade, because what I'm going to do is put that piece of brass through, glue the whole thing together. We'll probably need to let it sit overnight, and then we can grind the rest of this away and make a nice round handle that's going to fit very comfortably in the hand. And back to the drill press. Okay, there it is with the brass pieces fitted inside. Looks like everything fits pretty well. Doesn't look too loose. There's no glue holding this together right now. It's just dry fit because I was checking to make sure everything lines up the way I wanted to, and well, so far so good. Hey, good morning. It's day 2 on our oyster knife making project, and last night we glued up the handles and I put the brass bolsters through it, and you can see it's still pretty chunky, so I'm going to need to do a lot of grinding to bring this down to the handle size I want. Ultimately, you see how it's very square. I want to have a rounded handle to make it more comfortable. So I'm going to go into the workshop and we're going to hit the grinder again, take the brass down, and then on the belt sander shape this handle to the way we want it. Okay, you can see I've got one side ground down, starting to look pretty nice. I'm going to get a nice feel for what this knife will look like when it's finished. Now I have to grind the other side. Okay, well now I have the knife, the rivets are ground down, and what I'm doing is I'm putting this on the jeweler's anvil. It's a smaller anvil I have, and I'm rounding over the heads, and what that's doing, it's pulling the pieces together so that this will never come loose. The handles won't come loose. It'll help with the epoxy as well. It'll help it all cure. And keep going. On down to the last few steps now. I just put on a new sanding belt. This is very rough grit. It's 120, but I need to take off a lot of this wood and kind of sculpt the handle a little bit. And then I'll switch to a finer belt, a 320, for finishing sand on that. And then it's just about done. Well, after the initial grinding, now it's really starting to look nice. It's starting to look like a knife now. I contoured the edges of the handle to make it a little more comfortable to grip, so you can get your thumb in there and so you don't slip. So it's coming along pretty nicely. Now I'm going to switch to a finer grit just to polish up the wood, and the rest of it I'll finish by hand with probably up to 400 or maybe 600 grit sandpaper. And then I'm just going to oil the handle, and then it'll be done. Well, the knife is all finished, and I applied a coat of oil to the handle, so it really brings out the natural color in the wood. Now all that's left is just a few sharpening strokes on the sharpening stone, and it's going to be ready as a surprise Mother's Day present. Well, here we are. This is my wife Nancy. The oyster knife is finished, and I'm going to give it to you as a Mother's Day present.
Thanks, but you know I'm allergic to oysters, right?